All right, guys. So we have an interesting development in the trial, or should I say trials, of Alex Jones. This is in CNN. They say Sandy Hook families ask judge to order Alex Jones to relinquish control of his company, alleging he transferred millions to himself and his family. So, look, I have no doubt about the fact that he transferred money, that he was slowly but surely, taking money out of his company and putting it in different bank accounts or different shell companies or LLCs or giving it to his parents or whatever. I have no doubt that he did that. There's been a lot of, detailed reporting on that where they even know the exact figures that he's moving around. And the reason he's doing this is because he's trying to dodge liability for paying out in the Sandy Hook defamation cases. He's trying to, I'll put my company through bankruptcy and say, I don't really have any money, so you can only get this tiny amount, right? That's the goal. But it looks like the Sandy Hook families have a counter move that they're leaning into here. So let me give you the specifics of this. They say the families of Sandy Hook victims allege that Alex Jones' company, Free Speech Systems, has systematically transferred millions of dollars to Jones, his family, and companies he controls in order to avoid compensating victims' families, according to a court filing. The Thursday filing from attorneys for the families was made as part of a Texas bankruptcy case for Free Speech Systems. The 9 families are asking the bankruptcy court to order Jones to relinquish his control over the company and appoint an independent committee to investigate its conduct and operations to ensure transparency, accountability, and maximize the debtor's estate for all creditors. CNN has reached out to an attorney for Free Speech Systems and Jones for comment. The families have painted a picture of a company that is being drained into insolvency to benefit insiders to the detriment of creditors, the filing states. Sandy Hook families are considered creditors in Free Speech Systems bankruptcy case after they sued Jones and his company for intentional infliction of emotional distress and defamation, among other claims. One of the allegations are related to Free Speech Systems' claim that it owes nearly $54 million to a company called PQPR that is owned by Jones' parents. The filing claims that 72% of payments to PQPR go to Jones and the rest to his mother and father, adding that money the company pays to PQPR ends up in Jones's pockets. It appears like they caught him red-handed on this one. That's what it looks like to me. In the summer of 2021, after default judgments were entered in Sandy Hook families' lawsuits in Texas and later in Connecticut, Free Speech Systems was allegedly transferring between $11,000 a day and $11,000 a week to PQPR, the filing states. So he did this sketchy move to dodge accountability, and he was doing it in little chunks on a daily or weekly basis. The families have alleged that Jones has siphoned between $18 million and $62 million from Free Speech Systems during the Sandy Hook lawsuits, even though the company claimed to be unable to pay debts it owed, the filing states. Earlier this month, a jury heard testimony from an economist who estimated that Jones has a net worth of between $135 million and $270 million. Jesus. The economist Bernard Pettingill Jr. examined several years of records for Jones and Free Speech Systems, the parent company of Infowars, and said Jones used a series of shell companies to hide his money. Okay, so look, this actually lines up exactly with what one of the lawyers for the plaintiffs in the trial that Jones was just found to pay, you have to pay about $49 million. This is exactly what one of those judges told us about. He said, look, it's going to get really interesting when it goes into bankruptcy court because he can't really shield all of his recent financial actions, and he can't really play hide the ball as much as he's been doing to this point. More stuff is going to come out. And ultimately, it could be the case that a judge says, you know what, he's shown he has to relinquish control of his company because what he's doing now is getting in the way of justice, trying to hide money that can, in theory, go towards the creditors, of which the Sandy Hook parents are now part of, right? So, man, it's getting interesting. Now, look, my guess is, just so everybody understands, my understanding is if he has to relinquish control of his company, it's to some sort of independent third-party group that manages it accordingly with these cases that are pending. But he would still be able, of course, to make the editorial decisions and like run his business as he sees fit. But it would definitely get us to a place where we're closer to justice in the sense that the money that needs to be paid will be paid. So one more caveat, though. I know I've told you guys this before, but for people who don't know the details, it's an important fact. The way Texas law works, you have a cap on the amount of money that can be paid out in these sorts of trials. And so it's double the compensatory damages plus $750,000. So the compensatory damage was, I believe, $4 million thereabouts. And so 4 plus 4 is 8. So that's double it, plus $750,000. $8,750,000 is the max that the parents can get respectively. So that's still a huge chunk of money, but make no mistake about it, that wouldn't make that much of a dent in a guy like Alex Jones, who's basically swimming in a giant pool of cash on a daily basis. So, you know, a lot of what happens is going to come down to the specifics, what comes through in bankruptcy court, what Jones is and isn't allowed to do in terms of how he's trying to hide his money, and also what happens in the next few cases, of which there are at least, I think, 2 more for Sandy Hook parents. But look, this is a big development, and there's a decent chance that Alex Jones will have to relinquish control of his company, which would be astonishing and something that, you know, you never really thought would even be possible. But from a legal perspective, it looks like it's not only possible, it might even be likely. Ever since Adpocalypse, when YouTube defunded all independent news and politics overnight, we haven't trusted them. We know they can pull the rug out from underneath us at any time. If you enjoy this content, please consider tipping $1 or $2 per month on the Secular Talk Patreon. Link in the video description box below. Thanks for your support.